Recreation Committee meeting, October the 14th, 5 p.m. It's called to order. Roll call. We have everyone here, and the only one that's not here is Miss Pam Ellis and Mr. George Valentine. Could you do the invocation?
Right, you had. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, Lord. We thank you for this beautiful day which you've given us, and life and liberty, Lord God. And we thank you for all the blessings that you've bestowed upon us. We ask blessings on this meeting tonight, Lord. May you give us wisdom, Lord, to do the public's business. And we ask that you protect, as always, our servicemen and women, Lord, across this earth, Lord God, and bring them home safely to us, Lord God. And we ask all these things in your Son's holy name. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Have a public comment period. If anyone want to speak, they can sign up and give it to the secretary. Okay. Item number 4 is the recreation report from Director Donnie Gautreaux.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I gave you all each a copy of the report. We started fall ball, and we have 195 kids registered. We got 15 teams, and everything is working out real good so far. We haven't had any problems. We had our first senior citizen recreation department dance. We had about 80, 85 people that showed up for it, and we have it on October 24th. Benny Johnson showed up, so y'all need to come out and dance with them women, I'm telling y'all. The Gosman Community Center, a contractor donated about 47 loads of floor light off our road, and we took it and brought it to Gosman Community Center and done a parking lot. Councilman Oliver Joseph and I went out and looked at it, and I think they did a good job. Law done the spreading of it. And the Ascension Civic Center, we just need some updating on that. The doors and all are falling off. I mean, nothing real serious. I mean, we haven't it takes a long time to open everything else, but that's something we're working on. The parks really got hit hard with the storm. A lot of the lights and all are twisted and bent and everything. We're gonna have to get in there and straighten them up. We got it the park pretty well cleaned up, and the debris removal is they've helped us a lot. They've come in and taken all the stuff off. And I have a copy of the rules that we went over so far. I was gonna give it to y'all tonight, but being having a presentation, we'll do it at the next meeting. So if that's all right, that's it.
Councilman Valentine.
I just want to compliment the Recreation Department and Mr. Gorney for 195 kids in the fall program and 15 teams. That's outstanding.
Thank you.
It really is. I know that that was something you got discouraged about. Some people discouraged. You said that you couldn't pull it off, but obviously there's a lot of interest out there for fall ball, and it's good that we can keep the kids occupied with a little extracurricular into the school year. That's good.
And we invite y'all to come out. We play on Tuesday and Thursday nights.
What park is that going?
Stevens Park.
Mr. Gurney Gautreaux, also, I looked at the parking area over in the Gosman. That was something we really need in that area, because that facility holds more people than we parking area, and it did look very well.
And it didn't cost anything but labor to spread the floor light.
Right. So I want to thank the contractor who donated it. Mr. Gurney Gautreaux, only one question I got is basketball. What we doing for basketball? We doing anything for basketball?
Yes, we got a program set up. We're already getting calls on it for when they arrest them. Miss Beth Clark takes care of all of that.
Okay.
And we have a guy that runs the whole basketball program free of charge. Yeah.
Okay.
Carl Cena
All
does a
right.
great job for us.
So, okay, so we can get an update on that next
Sure.
meeting? Okay, great.
If you like, I can have him at the meeting.
I just need an update, how many teams and stuff like that,
Sure.
how many registered we?
I don't think we've gotten that far yet.
Okay.
They can have the dates and all the rest.
All right. Any other further questions for Mr. Gonna go through?
Must be doing a good job, going. We haven't got any complaints.
It's a team effort. We put it together, a good team. The council members and President Martinez hadn't stood in our way. But I mean, anytime we've come with a recommendation, we've got a good work crew now. They understand what it takes to make a ballpark go. You know, we appreciate it.
We
Okay,
appreciate that. Thanks a lot.
all right, thank you. No other question. Next item on the list is Recreation Survey Report. And that was a survey we requested a couple months ago. The hurricane delayed us, but Mr. Adrian Percy is here to give us that report.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Joseph, and thank y'all for giving Percy and Company the opportunity to do this report. This presentation was actually supposed to be made it was all scheduled for the first week of September, and I think we had a storm or something that kind of has delayed this about 6 or 8 weeks, and so if y'all's parks took the same kind of hit that they have taken throughout every other neighboring parish, the fact that you're back up and running at all is amazing, because it was horrible. So appreciate it. When we were retained and by this committee and the council and President Martinez to do this survey, we had the plan was to do a statistical survey of the parish and find out what people wanted in their parish and the future parks and the recreation opportunities, and to get out and statistically go door to door, randomly sampling households. Well, we sat down, we set out to do 400 surveys and then decided that the best number was 40 per council district. And so with the 11 districts, that ended up being 440 surveys, which is what we collected, and we divided them 40 per district, which I have to say that the way we ended up doing this district by district is I went down through Charles Becknell over in the planning and permitting office, and also the guys in y'all's IT department were wonderful in terms of printing maps of the parish that had every road. They have the households. I have to tell you, I walked in there and 30 minutes later walked out with those maps. Those guys were, yeah, you were there that day. Those guys were so wonderful and so nice, and it made it so much easier for us to draw the sample. Well, we then sat down, we had another meeting back here, as you remember, and we went through each council district and looked at which neighborhoods and how we pull 5 surveys from this neighborhood, so many from that neighborhood. We divided up so that we knew we were canvassing this parish, and what we came back with was going to represent accurately and statistically the opinions of the people in the parish. We went door to door, had 10, 15 data collectors. We left from the sheriff's office and had Sheriff Jeff Wiley and his dispatcher all notified. We ran ads in the newspapers, public announcements. Everybody knew this was taking place, and I have to tell you, it ended up taking us 4 days to actually cover the parish and do it. But when we finished, we ended up with 440 surveys, 390 on the East Bank, 50 surveys on the West Bank. We followed right along with the sampling strategy, conducted the surveys August 9th and 10th, which is Saturday and Sunday, and August 16th and 17th, knocked it out. So when we're looking at the full sample results through this report, they're accurate to roughly plus or minus 4.8% at the 95% level of confidence. So we're comfortable with the survey, and I'm comfortable that what we came out with represents what the citizens of this parish want. So, oh yeah. Okay, so flip through, and that's kind of an overview of the research methodology. First slide. Let me say one more thing about the survey. The way we did this on a door-to-door methodology, it was a drop-off and pick-up. our data collectors would go through a neighborhood, knock on doors, and then go a few houses down, knock on another door. And I have to tell you, if the people were there, they got virtually no refusals. People wanted to answer the survey. They had heard about it. They wanted to participate. And some people would come across the street, I want one, I want, you know, other people wanted to put their opinions in. But what we would do, it was a 4-page survey. It was rather lengthy, and it was actually easier. If someone wanted it read to them, it would be read and filled out. And/or what they did most of the time was hand the survey to the individual with an envelope and say, fill it out, we'll be back around in a little while. So they'd pass it out for a few 20 or 30 minutes, go back around and pick up a few surveys, move to another neighborhood, pass them out, pick them up. And each survey was tagged back to the neighborhood, back to the council district. So when they all came back in, we knew exactly where they had come from, exactly what neighborhoods, and that they represented the parish. And everybody was very, very cooperative. The very first question on the survey is, have you or members of your household visited an Ascension Parish park during the past year? And what we put up here is a big table. All of you have copies of the report. And in the report, it's going to cover a little more in depth, the demographic breakout and everything. But on every one of these tables and on every one of the responses, we're going to give, if you look up there, they're basically 3 different groups of information. One is the full sample. That is, if you ran an election in the parish today, 2 out of 3 people would vote yes, they have been to the parks in the last year, and 35% have not. So that's the full sample, and this is going to be in every table and every data, every piece of information we present throughout this document. Then we have all 11 council districts, how people responded within those 40 people within each council district. And then on the bottom, we have reconstituted again as the East Bank response and the West Bank response. So when you look down, you can see not only how the whole parish feels, but how the East Bank and West Bank compare, and also how each council district compares. And I know all of the council members, we broke it out that way so that everybody can get a feel for how people feel across the parish and within each one of the geographic areas of the parish. Well, 2/3 have visited parks in the last year, and then you can look down at which council districts. Those numbers are a little higher than they are in the other districts. District 4 with 51% visitation, 49% non-visitation is probably the lowest utilization. And then you look at District 6, 80% visitation, only 20% not. So different districts, the people participate at different levels, but overall, East Bank and West Bank, it's basically 2 out of 3 households have used the parks. When we asked, if you have not used the parks, what's the primary reason for not using the park? And it's interesting, 41% of the people that did not go to the parks said lack of knowledge of the programs offered. They just didn't know. Or the parks are too far away. That was given by 30% of the full sample. And are parks not well maintained? And we will say this, West Bank residents were significantly more likely to say their parks were not well maintained, hence they didn't use them at the same degree that East Bank residents did. And West Bank residents also were more likely to say that their parks were unsafe as compared to the East Bank residents. Next slide, we asked, so which parks have you visited in the past year? Now, we'll tell you this, we did not give a list of parks. People wrote these answers in, and we had to compress them down. If you look up Jambalaya Park, #1 most used park, almost half, well over a third of the sample went to Jambalaya Park. It then drops down to Gonzales Park at roughly 40 mentions, Santa Ma, Butch Gore, Stevens, Paula, Crescent, and then Donaldsonville. Y'all might know best. That's what people just said, Donaldsonville Park. After that, the visitation drops off significantly. And it doesn't mean, and we had a discussion last week about this, it doesn't mean these other parks aren't being used, but most of them are apparently neighborhood parks. They're used by the people in their neighborhoods, and we only interviewed so many people in each neighborhood. So the parks with the high utilization are those that probably, have fairs, festivals, baseball. Yeah, you know, the ball fields, the parks that draw from across the parish are the ones most utilized. The neighborhood parks are being used, just not to the same degree that the larger parks are. All right, coming up with an issue that was being discussed just a little while ago, satisfaction with park maintenance. We asked everybody, if you have visited any Ascension parks during the past year, how well do you think the parks in Ascension have been maintained? And across the board, we see about 28% full sample saying very well maintained, just under 40% well maintained, 27% adequate, and 4% not well maintained. In fact, if you look down the second column from the right, the numbers of people and the percentages in each council district and across the full sample saying parks are not well maintained is actually very low. The negative is very, very small. Now, is there a lot of opportunity to move, you know, when you've got under 30% saying the parks are very well maintained? There's obviously a lot of opportunity for improvement, but there's not, it doesn't show to me a significant amount of dissatisfaction. Again, there's some districts council districts that vote the parks as being better maintained than do others. If you look down, Council District 9 shows almost 50% saying their parks, or the parks they visit, are very well maintained, as compared to, say, District 5 or District 1, where only 12% say the parks are well maintained. And so each one of you and the council members, when the rest of the council gets their reports and start looking, the question that I would pose back to y'all as y'all look at this information and you look at the council districts, we went out, we asked the questions, the people gave us their answers, and we've tabulated them. You are going to know, as the council representative for your district, and know this parish better than we do, and we'll know why people in one district are saying their parks are better maintained, why people in another district are not. And so as we go through this information and keep touching on these subjects, ask yourself in your gut, does this feel accurate? Are the people telling us the truth? Does it represent what the parish is saying? And I think from the discussions we've already had and some preliminary presentations that the people have spoken. We then asked, what are the preferred enhancements at Ascension parks? We gave a list, and it's rather extensive. It's hard to read up on the screen because there's so many, but there were several things that came out again and again, asked questions different ways, and they kept coming back, that walking and jogging trails were the #1 enhancement that people would like to see in their parks. That was across the board. That was in virtually every council district. Cleaner restrooms. Over 60% of right at 60% of the people said that the next enhancement they would like to see is cleaner restrooms. Covered picnic areas, drinking fountains, nature trails, which kind of goes back with walking and jogging, more shade trees, biking trails, more playground equipment. You know, all of these things were identified as important and are wanted enhancements by over 40% of the population. Well, if you look on the next slide, we then told everybody, okay, you want it all, because basically they could check anything and everything, and some, you know, and I was sitting there watching, because I was out collecting data also, and watching people, oh yeah, this is great, this is great, this is great. So there I was saying, well, you say, all right, now pick 4. What are the 4 things, first, second, third, fourth choice that you want? And actually everything still stacks up the same, but given choices, some of the enhancements drop down. If you notice, walking and jogging trails still gets the most total mentions, first through fourth. However, cleaner restrooms get more mentions as a first choice. If we can only do one thing, more people would vote for cleaner and/or more restrooms rather than jogging trails as a first choice. So when you average them all out with 4 choices, those 2 things still pop up significantly higher than anything else. And again, and then playground equipment. moves up when they're only given 4. When it was down like 6th or 7th, it moves up as a little more important when people have to narrow down and just pick 4 things. Nature trails are still there, and another thing that will pop up again and again and continue to be reinforced, covered picnic areas. The next one was interesting, fishing areas. And that is something that pops up usually in the top 6, 8, 10 items. Each time we asked, or different ways that people want more access to fishing, and or I guess that includes boat ramps and or places where they can go open to the public to fish. But if you look across, somebody wants just about everything you would offer. And one of the things this does, yeah, if money were no object, funding were no object, yeah, you'd want to do all of these things. But the people are telling you, here are the things, if we have to rank order, here's how they rank order, is what more people want. Again, we came back to preferred infrastructure. We changed some of the things. We put in some items here that were different from the other because they get into some more specific activities, such as playgrounds, golf course, dog parks, baseball fields, boat launches, and things. And so there was a little. The list was different, got more into some specific activities. But once again, walking and jogging past was the single most named item that just under 40% put as 1st through 4th. And then water parks and swimming pools popped up as 2nd and 3rd most wanted items for the parish to provide for its citizen. And then again, every way we asked the question, picnic areas, picnic tables, covered picnic areas popped up again. And covered picnic facilities, playgrounds, again, fishing areas, bike paths, a golf course, and an off-leash dog park. Those were the top 10. And they kept coming back and saying that. Now, if you look on the next slide, we have these, we pulled all of these out and have them rank ordered for each one of the council districts. So you can look at your district, but for the sake of brevity here, across the full sample, we've already seen walking, jogging paths, water parks, covered picnic areas, and swimming pools were the top 4 items that people in the parish wanted. If you look at the East Bank, those come out to be the same thing, but if you look at the West Bank, it's walking, jogging paths, then covered picnic facilities, playgrounds, and swimming pools would be 4th. So between the East Bank and West Bank, and I will say, by the way, picnic areas, covered picnic areas, repeatedly came out stronger on the West Bank than they were in terms of being demanded and or wanted, desired on the east side. Okay. We define 3 different kinds of parks. A neighborhood park, a community park, and then a regional park. And I know these are some hot button issues in the parish right now. And so the definition we gave is neighborhood parks are smaller, exist within or adjacent to neighborhoods, typically within walking distance of your residence. Infrastructures offered at neighborhood parks are playground equipment, short walking, jogging paths, benches, picnic accommodations. Would you or members of your households use or support the development of neighborhood parks? Basically, what we came out with is roughly 9 out of 10 households said absolutely yes. They would want more and or improved neighborhood parks. Stronger in some districts than others. In District 1, 96% said they wanted more neighborhood parks. And then if you look down to District 6, only 75% said they would support more neighborhood parks in their area. So it does change across the districts. Y'all know where the districts are located geographically, but there are differences. If we then look at community parks, they're larger, include more infrastructure, offer more activities, so serving a larger segment of the population, and are not always within walking distance. They include recreation centers, summer camp programs for children, longer walking and jogging paths, and also picnic accommodations. Here we had just under 92% saying yes, they would use or support, and only 8% saying no. Again, differences across the council districts. However, across the board, community parks seem to get slightly stronger support than neighborhood parks. We then define support for a regional park, mega park, and our sports complexes. They're large, support multiple sports fields, including activities not typically found at smaller parks or in smaller communities, archery ranges, RV parking, etc. They're capable of hosting larger tournaments at a single location. Because of their nature, regional parks attract guests from other areas, often positively impacting the local economy. Would you, members of your household, use to support the development of a regional park? And here we get right at 80%, 79.5% saying yes, 20.5% saying no. Again, if you look across council districts, there is, differences in support. If you look down at the bottom of this table, when we compare East Bank and West Bank, 80% of the East Bank said yes, whereas only 74% of the West Bank said yes, they would support a regional park. We then had them rank importance. What would be more important for you? Neighborhood, community, and our regional park. And if you look here, what's interesting is people came back, even though their votes were not consistent. Is there a next slide? There we go. The green is vote for neighborhood park, second and most. If you look down here at the regional park, which is the red, that is the largest single bar up there. And more people in the parish, basically about 45% would vote for a regional park first, followed, and then neighborhood and community parks are pretty much equal. But basically, even though everybody would like to see all three kinds of parks, better than 90% would like to see any or all, the regional complex, the regional park, was one that got the largest single response when they were actually given the choice. We then asked if you would support a regional park, money not an issue, would you support such a complex at Lamar-Dixon? The response was very similar to another poll recently conducted for the parish. Just under 75%, 74.7% said yes, and 14% said no.
Mr. Parish, can I ask you a question on that one?
Yes.
The question was stated, if money was not an issue.
If money was not an issue.
Could I ask why that was that way? Because money is going to be an issue with that particular facility. So I was just wondering why the question was asked that way.
Basically, we come back and we do ask them if they would vote. But basically, we were saying, would you support it?
Everybody's for Lamar-Dixon, but the money issue of paying for it is another issue.
We do come back and ask.
Okay.
We do come back and ask that.
Okay.
But it was basically saying, how do you feel about it? Let's don't worry about money first. And it was really to take the edge off of, them tempering their vote. But we
Okay.
do come back and ask
Thank you.
how they would spend the money and if they would vote for it.
Okay.
Yes.
I have a quick question. Actually, for the chairman here, maybe he can help me on something. Since we are talking about money and we're talking about Lamar-Dixon, and I had somebody ask me a question this past week, and I just could not answer. I did not know the answer, and I need some clarification. I think there's going to be a tax proposition this in November. Is that correct?
November
On November 4th? Yes, sir. Is any of that money that's going to be raised with the tax proposition going to be made available for, that's all strictly for Lamar-Dixon? It's not any of the parks and recreation, any other place in the parish, correct?
Correct.
Is any of that money in that proposition for any kind of recreation at Lamar-Dixon?
Yes.
Is there a dedicated amount of that money that's going to recreation at Lamar-Dixon?
Well, it's all going to go to, because Lamar-Dixon will be a recreational facility, and is classified as it is now. So
Is that money?
You have a plan, or you have a semblance of a plan that SJB did for Lamar-Dixon, aquatic. It's all about recreational facilities. There's 120 acres that's not being utilized that can be utilized. Basically, some of the things that are brought out here today, as far as jogging trails and those type activities, bike tracks, different alternative recreations, that 120 acres would certainly be looked upon to develop those type activities.
Okay.
And the money would be basically there. It would also climatize the entire area. The 4-H building would be climatized, and the main arena would be climatized, where it could be used year-round rather than in the summertime. It's almost useless. It's so hot.
Does all that money go into the park budget? Does that money go to Parks and Recreation budget?
Lamar Dixon. It's a dedicated funds only for the 210 acres,
240 acres.
240 acres. Anything on that property, all that funds can be used for any improvement on the grounds and Lamar facilities is right there.
Okay, so-
Recreation budget still have to come out, the regular recreation budget. Right now, currently, that we have $1.6 million.
So all the stuff we're talking about doing at other parks, none of the money in this proposition goes to doing anything else at any other park in the parish,
That's correct.
That's
Okay.
the way
That is
it's
correct.
worded. It's for Lamar Dixon and Lamar Dixon facility only. Yes.
Thank you.
Todd, you got any more?
I'm good.
Okay, we then asked preferred location. If you are members, or if you are members of your household would support or use a regional park, and if money were not an issue, would you support such a complex at the Lamar Dixon Expo Center? And where support drops down just a little bit, but it's right at 74.7% in favor across the full sample, 14% no, 10% undecided. However, if you look down at the bottom of the page, the comparison between East Bank and West Bank on the preferred location, those voting yes, 76% for East Bank and only 72% for West Bank. So, and 62%, excuse me, 76 to 62.8. And so support for a park at Lamar Dixon is significantly stronger on the East Bank than it is on the West Bank. We then asked, would you support it at another location? And look what happens to support. It drops down to 42%, below 50%. So basically, I'm sure it's partly because of the stature of Lamar Dixon and that facility, that complex where it sits right now. But for a regional sports complex, a regional park complex, it comes down that the parish overwhelmingly would support Lamar Dixon versus any other location in the parish. And again, East and West Bank have almost identical numbers on that one. So it and so do the council district. We then went through and once again asked, so at a regional park, what are the kinds of activities you'd like to see? And look at this. Playgrounds and jogging, running, walking trails showed up again as number one item they would like to see at that kind of a complex, followed by swimming, and then fairs and festivals. So they start looking at the regional park complex as something different than just the straight park. They start seeing as an encompassing a whole lot of other, the same things that the other parks would entail, but the fairs, then the other things jump up in here as also being preferred. So the support would be continued strong, and I think that is consistent, Mr. Martinez, with the other studies y'all have done. Support for improvements. How supportive would you be of park taking the following actions to improve recreational opportunities for Ascension Parish residents and rank order them? And we have a whole set of things that come down: upgrading existing parks, developing new jogging trails, and these were all mixed and matched, and they were all mixed around. We took very supportive, somewhat supportive, not supportive, or unsure. We averaged them, and we have them rank ordered. And basically, if money were available for the parks, what would people like to see done first? And that is upgrade the existing parks, then develop new walking, jogging, biking trails, upgrade existing athletic fields, purchase land for community parks, develop more areas for family and group events, and develop more summer day camp programs and facilities and programs for kids 6 through 12. And then improve parking lots. I mean, they're all rank ordered. You see them. And we also have these broken out by council district, how people voted. So when you get down to it, when people are given the money, the first thing they want to see done is the existing parks that exist, upgraded, improved. And then again, there's a slide that shows that. Okay. If Park had an additional $100 of funding, how would you distribute that money among the items listed below? And basically, this was kind of interesting. People had to take that $100 and spend it according to four things: improvements or maintenance of existing facilities, developing new programs, developing the new regional sports complex, and acquisition of park land. And basically what they decided first is improvement and maintenance of existing parks. Here's where they would spend, on average, 38 of those dollars. And by the way, these numbers between East Bank and West Bank are almost identical. Statistically, they averaged out to the same. And it's $38 of the 100 for maintenance and improvements at existing parks, $25 development of new park activities or programs, $16 for development of a new regional sports complex, and $21 for acquisition of new land, park land, and open space. One of the things I think this shows, nobody said spend $100 on just one thing. Everybody, when they were voting, if you look through the data set, it's very interesting. People, these 440 people, actually thought about this question, and they divided the money up. And basically what they're saying is, all four of these things are important to do. We just have to figure out how to balance the money. They didn't just offhand write numbers down. They looked at them and they thought, and the citizens were actually quite consistent the way they answered this question. And I was actually pretty impressed looking at the data set, and you could tell that they did put some thought into identifying how to divide the funds up. Now it comes down to a somewhat loaded question. Ascension spends much less than what some surrounding parishes spend per person on recreational opportunities for its citizens. For example, Ascension Parish spends 1/6, or about 17%, of what East Baton Rouge Parish spends, and less than 1/2 of what Terrebonne Parish spends per person on recreation. How much more would you be willing to spend per month to fund improvements to Ascension Parish parks and recreation programs? And we gave them some ranges: $1 to $5, $6 to $10, $11 to $15 per month, and $16 or more per month. And if you look down, these are divided across all the council districts. And basically, 76% of the people said they're going to spend more money. And oddly enough, across the full sample, you've got 21% saying $1 to $5 more per month, 28% saying at least $6 to $10 a month. Well, when you think about it, that's anywhere from $72 to $120 a year they're willing to pay per household in additional fees to use it, and that's almost 1/3 of the sample saying that. It's over 1/4 of the sample. And then if you add up the 14.8 and 12%, that's another 1/4 of the sample saying they would spend $11 to $15 or $16 or more. Basically what you have is that better than 50% of the population in this parish, or the households and those in here, are saying they would spend $75, $100, and up to $150 more per year to fund the parks. And so bottom line is that when we got in and specifically asked about how much would you spend on a monthly basis, the majority of people actually said they expect to spend more, and they know it's going to cost to get improved parks. If you look down, support is somewhat stronger on the East Bank than it is on the West Bank, but that's also where the majority of the population is. And then we came down, if a comprehensive plan and dedicated funding mechanisms were provided, would you vote yes to support additional funding and improve recreational programs, activities, and facilities that are important to you and or members of your household? Right out the gate, we got 52% saying yes, 35% saying yes they would, 35% saying they might, and only 5% saying no, they would not vote in favor of additional park funding. Now, we didn't give them an exact number, we didn't break it out. We basically said, it was more of a philosophically, would you support additional funding? And basically you get almost 90% saying yes, they would. They would definitely and or likely vote in favor of it. And if you look down East and West Bank, the numbers are very, very similar for East or West Bank. The support for more improved and better funded parks is definitely out there in the population, and they're also saying what they want. Our recommendations, although in our report, in the executive summary at the beginning, and the recommendations are filled out in significantly more detail. And as you go through each one of these tables, one of the things that are included in every section of this report are the demographic breakouts, not just by council district, but how older people, younger people, males, females, each one of the demographic groups that we pose these surveys to, it's broken out and tells you not just by council district, but who and how the people that support this or don't support this, what they look like, and what the demography is. And a lot of that is very interesting in terms of which groups, which populations in the parish want to see which activities. But when you take all of this in totality, what would our recommendation be for what do you do with it? Now that you have this, the parish has said this is what we'd like to see. This committee and or an expanded committee, and the full council review the report. Compare your council districts, sit down and see what is it people in my district want as compared to the rest of the parish, and everybody do some soul searching and just get a real good feel for what everybody is saying and how it breaks out across the parish. I would then recommend that somehow this group organize for a longer term planning process for the parks. What is it we want to do? Get community input and establish a process to sit down. Now, I'm sure it would involve this committee and then some others to join in, some other constituent groups for their input, get everybody together, the council at large, and organize a planning process and develop a plan for the parks. Where do we want to be? And that's that visioning process. What do we want our parks to look like 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now? And then basically after that, you're going to have to get out and present it to the public. Everybody knows what Lamar-Dixon is. Everybody knows because Lamar-Dixon is in the newspaper, the Lamar-Dixon. Everybody knows where it is. Everybody's been to events at Lamar-Dixon. And so the Lamar-Dixon issue is a whole lot easier for everyone in the parish to get their minds around because they see it, they know what the facility is. When you're talking about growing, envisioning, changing, improving the parks, they're spread all over the community. Everyone in every council district is going to want to know what is happening in my district, what is happening that we can over and separate from Lamar-Dixon. And so it's going to require town meetings, building support across the parish, and then this group figuring out how to get this funded, and how to present that issue to the voters. And they have said they would fund it if the plan is presented. And now it comes down developing the plan based on what they say they want. So, any questions?
Well, open up for question. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Abe?
Mr. Percy, appreciate you undertaking this for us. I think it's clear that the support is there. I mean, obviously 77% of the residents said they would support additional funding. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said we basically need to put together a strategic plan with what we want to do, come up with a cost, and have some dedicated funding and present that to the voters. I couldn't let this opportunity pass me by without mentioning a couple of things. The first was number one priority was to upgrade existing parks. The second was about the infrastructure improvement to the parks. The number two was the water park. So, and then also Jambalaya Park was 3.5 times more visited. So, I know, Mr. Chairman, you asked me when I did the Oak Grove improvement plan recommendation, how that, if we could incorporate that into the master plan, and I think that lines up pretty well with what we saw. So,
concur in the master plan. Any other questions? I'd just like to say thanks for the survey, and I thank everyone understanding. Let me just mention this here, 3 meal tax that is on the ballot right now. We projected is about $150 a year on property tax. So in just looking at that, you saying the average household right now would...
Better than 50% say they would pay that.
That's right. So
Right now.
And if that's the case, that's looking at another proposal going to the public and asking for another 3 mil to fund this thing, and that's about another additional 2 mil. But our master plan hadn't came out with a dollar value, so we really don't know what that millage is going to be. But a ballpark figure, you know, what you just gave us would do that. But the master plan is right now, we know that's our next step, is creating a master plan.
Yeah, I guess I'm still concerned, you know, 50% say they're for it. Is it for Lamar Dixon or for the entire tax proposal that needs to come up?
The way it was presented here, it would have included both. The regional sports complex.
Right, but
the
see,
regional sports
$150 is
complex.
not going to be what it's going to take to support all recreation throughout the parish. It's going to take a bunch more than that. And I don't know if the parish president has any plan for it coming forward to us yet on how much more it's going to take, or what's the game plan down the road for the rest of the recreation that this is telling us we need, that you're putting forth in front of us tonight.
Well, you're just going to have to do a master plan as suggested, this poll suggests, and Mr. Percy suggests, to find out. Now, some of the things that are in this poll we're addressing as we speak. We met with the Sportsman League a couple weeks ago, and you know, the pump station in Sorrento, there's a nice 5-acre pond there, and we talked to them about actually opening that up to the public as a fishing facility that could be utilized, open just on the weekend and weekends, and there's a lot of fish in there, and it could be utilized for, it's only for kids type fishing place, so we could restock that as the years go on, and it would be nice, and I think that'll become a reality. I'm also going to be presenting a budget to you Thursday night that we certainly have taken upgrading our parks into consideration there for the short term, to go ahead and do those type things, and hopefully that Mr. Gautreaux has worked on a budget for that, and we'll be making that presentation. So we're going to utilize what we have. We're going to try and put a little more money, one-time money, into recreation this year to upgrade our facilities. So, and we're looking at the fishing aspect of it. Of course, jogging trails and biking is big. People are health conscious these days, and that's what they want. You know, we have to have the area to build those type facilities. I know schools does it. Santa Mo High, the track's used pretty much every night and every morning. I don't know Dutchtown, Georgia, if that's open there, that they utilize it quite a bit. You know, we got places that we could build those type bike paths and walking trails around, nature trails. We got a lot of that around Stevens Park. We got extra 20 acres there that we could look at to do that, and I think y'all have already looked at that. So, you know, we can make strides with what we have. We're never going to achieve what we need to achieve with the funding that we have, but we're going to continually improve recreation and bring new ideas to the table, and hopefully we can get there a little at a time, and once they see that we are serious about it, it'll make it easier to sell a master plan and a program to the people. So now that you know what they want, it'll be easy. It's not like you guessing. It's all in black and white. And of course, if you look at a poll parish-wide, I mean, the number one problem is if they want to spend money, it's going to be for traffic. I mean, they want better roads. I mean, that's recreation is pretty low on that poll. Mm-hmm. So again, when they want to spend money, they're only going to spend so much. Now they're going to spend it on recreation. They want to spend it on roads. If you look at that poll, it's going to be a lot different. It'll be those type infrastructures they want. They want roads. They want sewage. They want, you know, if you want to look at the top two there, that's what they're looking at. So again, we as a group and we as a council and administration need to come together and find out what the priorities are and put together, develop a plan. We met today with CPAC, Capital Region Planning. I don't know what the CPAC means, but it's the regional planning that did a lot of the planning for the Baton Rouge area. And Ms. Boo Thomas heads that, and we recently received a grant. I would think that part of the $400,000 master plan that we are going to be doing is going to include recreation. It'll include a transportation plan. And we've done a lot of research and spent a lot of money in the past on master plans. Certainly don't want to throw that in the garbage. We want to incorporate that and not duplicate. I think recently they did a traffic plan. I don't know, George, I don't know when that occurred. A master plan for...
At least 3, yeah.
Yeah. So, but some of that material can be utilized, and some of these poles also can be utilized when you develop that plan. So I think that that's going to be a key element, and with that master plan, you can have your input there as far as the recreation plan for the parishes.
Yeah. Had we had more of a plan, this study is an initial study. Where are we? How do you rate where we are? Where do you want us to go? And what kinds of things do you want us to develop? And I will say one of the first meetings that I attended was the SJB group was making a presentation with kind of a master plan recommendations over Lamar Dixon. And so I think with an operational history and a lot of other plans, there are things for that exist in terms of understanding with Lamar Dixon. If we had more of a plan, we could have posed more specific questions regarding the plan. And I think inherently, philosophically, people would like to see more parks, would like to see enhanced parks, and they say they would want to pay for them. They're not going to vote yes until they know what they're going to get and how much it's going to cost.
Yep.
And we just couldn't ask that question because we don't know the answer.
Thank you, sir.
I have, because the president just said that the master plan that he's looking at and putting recreation into the master plan with for the parish. In your expertise, or your for recreation, most when you do surveys like this here, do they normally include their recreation in a master plan parish-wide, or do they do a master plan just for recreation and then they implement it in it?
I've worked in a number of different communities, and it's done both ways. Some communities, the parks and recreation are kind of like it's being done here right now. It's a piece of the overall plan, and I know that East Baton Rouge, just in the last few years, went through a whole citywide planning process leading up to a major bond issue, leading up to a major overhaul of virtually all of the parks in East Baton Rouge. I know that in West Feliciana, where I live, there is a master plan for parks, and they went through, 6 or 8 years ago, a whole swap around of land and moving parks to get their centralized park put together, and that was funded that was funded separately from the overall parish master plan. So I've seen it done both ways, part of just regular municipal operations, and then also as a separate line item, dedicated millage. And so, it really comes down to what is going to work for this parish in terms of trying to put together the funding that people will vote yes for.
Okay. Any further questions? Mr. Agent Percy, I really appreciate it.
Okay. Well,
thank you for the information.
We do appreciate
Thanks.
Yep.
it. And by the way, we are on schedule for a brief presentation, or is that going to be at a council?
That's going to be the first meeting. And we won't be in, huh? Yeah, but we don't have the video to, if you're going to need overhead projection and all that to do the presentation to the full council.
We can do it however you want.
We have the projector screen, right? We did it with.
Projector screen.
Okay. Well, it'll be the first meeting in November the 6th in Donaldsonville.
Okay.
Okay?
You got it.
All right.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
Second.
Motion to adjourn. All in motion, say aye. Adjourn. Meeting adjourned.